Huge news in the WSL2 earlier this month. Mercury 13 acquiring a majority stake in Bristol City. For those of you who don't know, get to know, Mercury 13 are a multi-club ownership group who have promised to invest $100 million in teams across Europe and South America over the next 5 years. They already own Como Women over in Syria, and they've been looking for a club in the English game for a while now. I remember speaking to Victoire probably start of this year, and she was saying that there was sort of rumblings about who they were going to take over. She wouldn't tell me who. I was very, very excited to kind of see what that club would look like. You remember they did try and have a bit of a takeover opportunity with Lewis, but that fell through in 2023. Bristol City have been owned by the Lansdowne family for over a decade. They achieved quite a fair bit as a club, having reached 2 FA Cup finals in 2011 and 2013, and as one of the founding members of the WSL. When I
watched Bristol against Barca. Back then it was
Bristol v Barca.
Bristol Academy.
It's a fixture.
Bristol, I'm pretty sure they beat Barca. Like way back when we started Girls in the Ball, they were the ones up the top, challenging Arsenal. I remember, never forget a game that Arsenal were 2-0 down against Bristol and they brought on Kelly Smith at half time and she scored a hat-trick. Do you know what I mean? Like they bloody challenged. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, they're OGs in the game. And it doesn't really surprise me that that's where Mercury 13 has gone, because I feel like particularly now as Bristol City, they've always been ones that are willing to try things and maybe do things a little bit outside the box. And, some of the things that Victoire touched on, she did an interview on the Guardian Women's Football Weekly podcast last week. Shout out to Sophie for getting that interview. A great interview. She was very interesting kind of reasons why. She touched on, their Robbins High Performance Centre, how important that is. The fact they've got that academy, we see so many young players coming through from Bristol, and also the fact that she feels that the audience in that part of the country is untapped. And I agree. Like, I don't think, there are teams maybe not in the top division over there, and I think they're really keen to try and tap into that. I think, it obviously throws up all these questions about multi-club ownership again, and what happens in 5 years' time if Como and Bristol are both in the Champions League and how that's going to work. And I totally agree. We've voiced our kind of concerns around them before, but equally, I think that's on the job of the people who manage those competitions to address now and not wait until that situation arises and then suddenly they've tried and figure things out. Like, we can see that there's potential for this happening. So if things need to change them, put in rules, whatever that might be. But I don't think you can then blame these investors for owning multiple clubs if you can do that. The rules need to be changed to address it.
I think that it's going to trigger a relook at whether the women's football game comes under the independent regulator. Like when the Premier League had that, I can't remember when the discussions were, was it last summer? It was decided that women's football wouldn't be a part of that.
Sure.
Now I think, literally, but these 3 independent investors now have come into the top 2 tiers of women's football, and you are going to see this happening. I mean, loads of people were asking questions when Daniel van der Donk was sort of moved between the London City, and that people are starting to kind of now question, okay, well, what happens when you've got these multi-million pound, owners who can come in, buy players, like what's happened, look at the sort of the sustainability of clubs, like the profitability of clubs, like, it's going to throw up all these questions. And I think you're completely right. Like, get ahead of it before it becomes a problem. And then all of a sudden you're having to put in place like fines and kind of like bans and
or
things
you're
like
getting
that.
dropped out of competitions, or who gets to stay, who gets to go. When these
legal bills start running up, which like women's game just doesn't have. Like, it's just...
we can see it's potentially going to happen.
100%.
So, as I said, proactive rather than reactive. What I liked was she was asked, from a footballing perspective, why England, why is it here she wanted to come. And I loved her answer. She said her favourite thing about women's football in England was its resilience. And she said, when you think about the history of women's football here and what it's gone through, it is the ultimate comeback. It is the comeback of all comebacks, which I loved. The fact that it's been banned for 50 years and now it's one of the leading federations and countries when it comes to women's football. And I just thought that was such a cool kind of metaphor, if you like. It's comeback. We all have a comeback in football, right? So I think she's very genuine in terms of her passion for women's football. I think we've spoken about being willing to be open to new ways of doing things and seeing how it works. We don't know how it's going to work. We don't know how it's going to play out. These things take time. But you've got a company willing to invest a lot of money in women's football, in all aspects of women's football, in the resources. She's touched on the fact that everywhere in women's football is under-resourced. And this is an opportunity to put more resources into all of those areas. So I'm excited to see what that could mean for Bristol City.
Well, maybe it's quite apt then that Victoire's chosen, the comeback of all comebacks. You look at Bristol City yo-yoing between the WSL and WSL2. This investment, you look at the players that they could potentially now bring in to kind of bolster the squad and kind of take them back up into the WSL1. Obviously, not having the best start at the weekend, losing to Nottingham Forest 2-1. But they do have Charlotte Healy, who's been an absolute asset. She was incredible at United, a big part of their success. But what I can't work out with Mercury 13 is like how they're going to approach Bristol City as an entity, as a brand. I mean, when you look at what they did with FC Como, I mean, they launched an AI designed fashion line last week. They are unashamedly kind of commercial in the way they operate. Obviously, Victoire, she is, if you've ever been in a room with Victoire, you can feel her presence as soon as she comes in. There's
and
like
you feel underdressed.
Immediately underdressed. I feel like there was a party that they did to kind of celebrate their partnership with DAZN, and I think it was start of the year, maybe even before Christmas, and they had it at Soho House, and there was Italian cured meats all across one section, Italian Prosecco. Everyone had to wear either black or white. There was loads of botanicals. It was like, you felt like you were part of an exclusive club.
I got invited to a Mercury 13 Lake Como event in London this summer, and I was in Lake Como. And I couldn't
That's
go.
unfortunate. That's like, really unfortunate.
Why are you there and not here? That doesn't make any sense.
But I think like that's the kind of like ethos that she wants to kind of create around FC Como. I mean, she wanted to kind of pitch it as a Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy kind of women's football club, which I rate the ingenuity of trying to create this kind of fashion brand around the club, and that they've done these lovely collaborations with Mari, and you see the players like doing, like fashion related things. It's like very kind of high end, very premium. What I do kind of struggle with is like whether that is slightly too niche as a concept to kind of take to Bristol City. I mean,
I don't see her taking that concept.
It would be quite
to Bristol
funny.
City. I can understand. I actually applaud that ingenuity. You're in Lake Como. You're in Italy. They're known for their fashion. It's pricey,
premium
part of. Yeah, so I can understand. I don't foresee that being translated over to Bristol City. They've got Thatchers there, right? Thatchers, you've got like quite a cool, demographic living in Bristol. They're a very sport-loving town. They've got a number of clubs and sports that they really tap into, and I'll be intrigued to see how they approach that, because I do think they'll approach that completely differently.
It's given though, like Barber.
They love their Thatchers, kind of they do. Yeah, absolutely.
Like, it's given like Barber and like, I don't know, like weekends with like roast dinners and gorgeous red wine, and like it's given like premium.
They'll
like
probably bring their dogs to the games.
Literally that.
Like they do at Ashton Gate a lot. Is they have those food stalls and stuff outside with the local foods and all that kind of stuff.
Cornish pasties everywhere.
They'll tap into that. There's loads
homegrown sausages.
She's so right about it being untapped, and it could be a really interesting project.
That's what I'm most excited about. The kind of like the brand.
You're just going to go there for the Thatchers and the food, aren't you?
What I will say is, when I've played at Bristol City, they have one of the best burger vans that I've ever come across. Like, and the worst thing is that when you're obviously playing, you're very much focused on the game, but at the same time you walk out of the changing rooms and you're immediately hit by the burger van before you get to the pitch, and that was really tough for me, actually.
Well, now they're at Ashton
the end
Gate
of my career, and all I wanted was to lie down and have a burger, to be honest.
And now at Ashton Gate you're kind of surrounded by all of that loveliness. When you're going in, you can just
literally
smell it.
But we will wait and see. I'm really, really excited to see what they do. And also, the January transfer window is going to be a big one for them. Interested to see if Mercury 13 put their hands in their pocket to the same extent that Michelle Kang has. I feel like these independent clubs are going to... There's like a battle of independent clubs at the moment, and seeing what they're all going to do. But really, really exciting, and love the fact that there's some new concepts starting in both leagues.